Good evening. I'm Rohit Sharma and welcome to Desi From DC, coming to you every night from heart of Washington. Tonight, all eyes are on the race for New York City, where millions of voters are heading to the polls to choose the next leader of America's most dynamic metropolis, a contest that's shaping up to be as fierce, unpredictable, and defining as the city itself. So, from Capitol Hill to Rice Hill, we connect the dots between what happens here in Washington and how it echoes back home in India. We begin tonight with the biggest story of the day. NYC mayor race shake-up. Zohran Mamdani takes the lead. Could he win it all? Trump and Modi keep the momentum. US-India trade talks heating up. White House confirms. Elon Musk slams NYC ballot process, calls it a scam, no ID needed. Dick Cheney, powerhouse and controversial leader, dies at 84, a political giant passes. Indian-American lawyer Neal Katyal takes on Trump in Supreme Court showdown over trade power. Tonight we dive into what may be game changer for New York City politics. The latest polls suggest that Zohran Mamdani is now leading the race for mayor, and he may well be headed to victory. In the most recent AARP Gotham polling survey, Mamdani is commanding 43.2% support, with former Governor Andrew Cuomo trailing at 28.9%, and Republican candidate Curtis Silva coming at 19.4%. What's more, in a hypothetical two-way matchup, well, meaning if Silva dropped out, Mamdani's lead tightens but remains in his favor, 44.6% to Cuomo's 40.7%, a margin, however, that falls within the poll's error range. Real Politics Average, compiled just yesterday, puts Mamdani ahead of Cuomo by 14.3% in a head-to-head polling. In a three-way race context, a Quinnipiac poll shows Mamdani leading Cuomo by about 10 points. Another poll from Newsweek's tracking matrix showed Mamdani holding 45% support in the current general election matchup. So what's fueling Mamdani's surge? Progressive agenda and popular platform. Proposals like free buses, free childcare, a rent freeze for tenants in rent-regulated apartments, and a municipal grocery options have resonated with liberal and younger voters. Strong early turnout in strongholds, boroughs where Mamdani is strongest, Manhattan, Brooklyn, Queens, saw robust early voting activity, possibly signaling base enthusiasm. And a divided opposition. With multiple challengers splitting votes, Mamdani benefits from a fragmented field. Undecided older voters are also key. Polls show that a disproportionate share of undecided voters over the age of 50 are making a swing block that is to be watched. Before we start declaring winners, a few caveats. Margins matter. In a head-to-head simulation, Mamdani's lead sometimes falls within the polling error bounds. Silva staying in the race could alter vote splits and dynamics, especially in swing districts. Polls always capture a moment in time. Last-minute shifts and local ground game can change the equation overnight. Also, critics of Mamdani point out to controversies over foreign policy stances. Example is comments on Israel, his comments of India, and that could have also mobilized the opposition. Tonight is election day. And while polls don't cast ballots, the picture painted by latest numbers is striking. Zohran Mamdani appears to have overtaken his rivals and may be on the brink of making history in New York City. Now you stick with us throughout the evening. We'll bring you real-time returns, surprises, and definitive results as they roll in. New York City, the city that never sleeps, is now the battleground that never cools. The race for New York City has erupted into a national showdown. Zohran Mamdani versus Donald Trump's America. This isn't just a mayoral race anymore. It's fight for the political soul of America's biggest city. Here's a report by Rudrashish Kanjilal on how New York became ground zero in the war between progressivism and Trumpism.
New York City, the city that never sleeps, is once again the stage for America's fiercest political drama. But this time, it's not just about potholes, policing, or property taxes. It's about power, ideology, and Donald Trump's grip on America's political soul. With Zohran Mamdani, a democratic socialist and state assemblyman, surging ahead in the polls, the New York mayoral race has exploded into a national spectacle. A referendum on the Trump era, barely months into his return to the White House. Mamdani's campaign isn't just historic, it's transformative. If elected, he'd become New York's first Muslim and first Asian American mayor, redefining the city's political identity. But President Donald Trump has made sure this election is anything but local. He's called Mamdani a communist. He's threatened to restrict federal funding to New York if Mamdani wins. And he's thrown his weight behind former Governor Andrew Cuomo, now running as an independent. Trump has made it clear: support Mamdani and risk economic disaster.
We have a communist who's 33 years old, doesn't know a damn thing. Practically, he's never worked a day in his life. And he sort of caught on, right? And I'm not going to send a lot of money to New York. I don't have to. You know, the money comes all through the White House. And if they're going to be sending us stupid policies, I mean, communist policies, which is proven for thousands of years doesn't work. You know, we don't have to prove it again. We're not going to ruin one of our great cities because we'll make that great. We will clean up the crime in about 30 days. Took 12 days to do Washington, D.C.
Meanwhile, progressives see this as their defining moment, a chance to prove that left-wing politics can thrive even under Trump's shadow. For the first time, a city election has become a national battlefield. Trump's renewed presidency looms large. His rhetoric has sharpened divisions, drawing clear lines between progressivism and Trumpism, between federal power and local defiance. Mamdani's message: New York should stand tall, not bow to Washington threats. Trump's message: elect Mamdani and watch your federal funds vanish. The clash is raw, personal, and symbolic. The president versus a city that's long defined him. If Mamdani wins, New York becomes a laboratory for progressive governance under federal pressure, a test case for how far cities can push back against a Trump White House. The outcome will shape not only the Democratic Party's future, but also define Trump's ability to control urban America, the bastion that have long resisted his brand of populism. For Trump, this is a proving ground. Can he bend blue cities to his will? For Mamdani, it's a test of endurance. Can a grassroots progressive defy the most powerful man in America and win? With Rajashish Kanjalal, Bureau Report, India Today Global.
And on this very important election day, we are joined by Assemblywoman Jennifer Rajkumar, who represents her district in New York Assembly, and she will talk to us about this important New York mayoral election, the campaign of Zohran Mamdani, the divisive nature of the campaign, and what it means for New Yorkers.
And joining us now is Assemblywoman from New York City, representing the 38th district in Queens, New York, is Jennifer Rajkumar. Assemblywoman, thank you so much for joining us.
Always glad to be with you.
First things first, you know, the polls will close in a few hours. What's the mood in New York City like? And this is one of those races which has been not watched only closely nationally, but it's gained international, significance too. So if you want to give us, what's your take on this race, and how close could this race actually be?
Well, three men are telling us that they are ready to lead the greatest city in the world. And for months, New Yorkers have been listening to these three men with some skepticism, and there are questions about all three. But tomorrow, New Yorkers are energized to decide, because the future is always exciting. And what we are really talking about is, what is the future of the Democratic Party in New York City. And I believe that the future is one that is inclusive, and where we can take big ideas and make them a reality. So the question is, which of these three people can do that?
Now, well, there's no Republican candidate in this race. So we've got an independent, or and somebody who defines himself as a socialist Democrat, and then we obviously have Curtis Silva too. How close is this race? Polls say that Zohran Mamdani is leading by at least 10 to 12 points. I mean, is that what you're hearing too?
Yes, this race is closer than most general elections. In most general elections in New York City, the Democrat wins by a huge majority and has a clear mandate when they take office. In this election, the question is, will Zoran Mamdani break 50% or will he be under 50%? This has been a very contentious race, and so it's divided, and let's see what those percentages actually are.
And we've also seen a lot of identity politics play out in this election, when it comes to religion and faith. A lot of attacks from both sides when you consider Cuomo and Zohran Mamdani. What are New Yorkers talking, saying or talking about it? I mean, in fact, a lot of people have been saying that this election was more about transit and affordable housing, but that kind of has taken a back seat.
That's correct. In New York, we have Hindus, Muslims, Sikhs, Jewish, and Christian New Yorkers all living in harmony on one block. That's our reality as New Yorkers. So these kinds of divisions are not reflective of real life. And so New Yorkers have been a little disappointed with all of the division they're seeing in politics. The future of our politics is one that's all inclusive. I am the first Hindu ever elected to a New York State office. And I love my Muslim and Jewish and Christian brothers and sisters like they're my own family. And that's what we're looking for in our leadership. So you're correct that it has been divisive and it shouldn't be that way.
Now, this election is also could be serving as some people and analysts and pundits have said the future of Democratic Party. Do you view that is correct? Do you think that if Zohran Mamdani wins, it's a clear message to all Democrats across the US that this is the platform that they should fight on?
No, I do not. I think that the Democratic Party is still finding its way forward in the next few years. We are ready for the future, but that future must be one that unifies all faiths as one. And that future has to be one where we turn big ideas into reality. It's very easy to say everyone should have free housing, everyone should have free transit, no one has to work, everything is free. But in reality, that's not how the world works. So we need leaders that are able to take big ideas and make them real, working within the confines of how government actually works. And we're getting there, we're getting closer. And I view this election as one step to our glorious future.
Now, also, important enough, Zohran Mamdani has taken a few positions that are controversial in terms of he could be putting New York City, in opposition to what President Trump would want to do. And President Trump has obviously, said that he would use force. Do you think that there would be a very contentious relationship between the White House and New York's new mayor, Zohran, if he wins tomorrow?
Yes, I believe there will be. President Trump has already said that he's not going to allot funding for New York City with Mamdani as mayor. And Mamdani has said that he's Trump's worst nightmare. So right away, you're seeing a setup for an incredible clash. So New Yorkers are preparing, but we are ready for the fight.
And before I let you go, Assemblywoman, for those undecided voters who haven't really made up their mind, what would you ask them to vote on? As if, for your constituents who are still deciding or undecided yet, what would the issues that New Yorkers should be voting on? Forget the politics, the optics, the religion. What issues are important to New Yorkers so that they can make an informed decision on this important election?
I would say that it might be a tough choice, but elections are about choosing the best of your options. So evaluate it as best as you can. Who can lead us? Who can bring our communities together? Who is not divisive? Who has the experience to lead? Who can make our city more affordable? These are the questions you need to ask and do your best. And I'm behind you 100%.
All right. Thank you so much, Hassan. We were Jennifer Rajkumar, the first Hindu ever to have been elected in the New York's 38th district, if I'm not mistaken, in Queens. Thank you so much for joining us, and we look forward to having you after the results are announced. Thank you, and thank you so much.
Thank you. I can't wait.
The US government shutdown has entered its 35th day, matching a record set during President Donald Trump's first term for the longest in history. The shutdown has resulted in food assistance for the poor being halted for the first time. Federal workers from airports to law enforcement and the military are going unpaid. Many families now without approximately $180 per month on average of food stamps. The Trump administration said it would partially fund November food benefits, but warned that it could take weeks or months for the aid to be distributed. The US Senate has voted more than a dozen times against stopgap funding measure passed by House of Representatives, and no lawmaker have changed their position. Trump's Republicans, they hold a majority of 53 by 47 in the Senate, but they do need additional votes from at least 7 Democrats to meet the chamber's 60-vote threshold to pass this legislation. Democrats, however, are withholding their votes to extract an extension of some healthcare insurance subsidies. During the shutdown, Trump has focused on foreign policy from Gaza to Russia to Asia. But recently, he's begun calling for Republicans to abolish the Senate's 60-vote filibuster threshold. The 15th shutdown since 1981 stands out not just for its length. It has inverted the normal partisan dynamic in which shutdowns have often been provoked by Republicans. In addition, little effort has been put into ending this latest shutdown. The House has been out of session since September, and Trump has repeatedly left Washington and returned back with no end in sight. Indian-American attorney Neal Katyal will appear before the US Supreme Court on Wednesday in a case that President Donald Trump calls one of the most important in American history. The hearing could decide how much power does the president have to impose tariffs and who controls the US trade policy. The case centers on whether Trump overstepped his authority under the 1977 International Emergency Economic Powers Act, which let presidents act during national emergencies tied to foreign affairs. A ruling against him could curb one of the most aggressive tools, using tariffs to pressure nations and shape foreign policy. Katyal, 54, a former acting US Solicitor General under President Obama and one of the nation's most experienced Supreme Court litigators, will argue on the behalf of a coalition of small businesses and Democratic-led states that say Trump's sweeping tariffs were unconstitutional. According to Bloomberg, Katyal was chosen to argue the case after a coin toss between plaintiff's lawyer. A Yale Law graduate, Katyal has argued over 50 cases before the Supreme Court, including landmark decisions such as Hamdan versus Rumsfeld and Moore versus Harper. Born in Chicago to Indian immigrant parents, Katyal has often clashed with Trump policies, including his 2017 travel ban. Dick Cheney, former Vice President of the United States and one of the most powerful and polarizing figures in modern American politics, has died at the age of 84. Perhaps no words capture the enigma of Dick Cheney better than that of his colleague, former Secretary of Defense Donald Rumsfeld, who decided that there are known knowns, there are known unknowns, and there are also unknown unknowns, the one that we do not know and we do not know. Dick Cheney probably would be classified as a known unknown to majority of Americans. He leaves behind a legacy as layered and as uncertain as the words of Donald Rumsfeld. Here's a report by Debangana Datta.
Former Vice President Dick Cheney has died at age 84. And with him goes one of the most powerful, controversial, and polarizing figures in modern American politics. Cheney did not just serve as vice president under George W. Bush. He redefined the office entirely. This was not ceremonial ribbon cutting. This was power, raw, concentrated, and largely unchecked. Let's be clear about what that power meant. On September 11, 2001, while President Bush was rushed to safety, it was Cheney who took control. From a bunker deep beneath the White House, he authorized the military to shoot down hijacked planes. He wasn't asking permission, he was giving orders. But Cheney's legacy will forever be tied to 3 words: the Iraq War. He was the chief architect, the driving force, the man who looked America in the eye and said, "We will be greeted as liberators." He told us Saddam Hussein had weapons of mass destruction. He insisted that there were links between Iraq and the 9/11 attacks. None of it was true. No weapons were ever found. No Al-Qaeda connection existed. And as American troops weren't greeted as liberators, they walked into a civil war that killed thousands of Americans and hundreds of thousands of Iraqis. A war that cost trillions of dollars and destabilized an entire region. Even when the intelligence was proven wrong, Cheney never backed down. In 2015, he declared, "I was right about Iraq." He defended torture, what he called enhanced interrogation without apology. "I would do it again in a minute," he said. That's the Cheney millions remember. The man who earned the nickname Darth Vader. The man Democrats despised for decades. But here's where the story takes an extraordinary turn. In his final years, Dick Cheney did something almost unthinkable. He broke with the Republican Party he helped build. Why? Because of Donald Trump. When Trump refused to accept his 2020 defeat and incited the January 6th insurrection, Cheney did not stay silent. He called Trump a coward and the greatest threat to our republic in 246 years. He appeared at the Capitol on the anniversary of January 6th, the only Republican there besides his daughter Liz Cheney, who would lose her congressional seat for standing against Trump. And in 2024, Dick Cheney, lifelong conservative, Iraq war hawk, Republican vice president, voted for Democrat Kamala Harris. Let that sink in. The man Democrats once considered a war criminal endorsed their candidate. Because as he put it, we each have a duty to put country above partisanship. His daughter Liz summed up his final chapter perfectly. My father chose country over party. So who was Dick Cheney? Was he the architect of disaster in Iraq? Absolutely. Was he the man who championed torture and expanded executive power to dangerous levels? Yes. Did his policies damage America's reputation worldwide? Without question. But in the end, when American democracy itself was under threat, this deeply flawed, deeply conservative man drew a line. He chose the Constitution over his party. That's the complicated and contradictory legacy of Dick Cheney. A man of immense power who made catastrophic decisions, but who in his final act defended the republic he had served for 5 decades. Whether history remembers him as villain or patriot may depend on which chapter you're reading. But one thing is certain, Dick Cheney changed America, for better and for worse. With Dipangana Datta, Bureau Report, India Today Global.
And that wraps up tonight's edition of Desi From DC. Before we go, let me remind you that we will be going live on all our channels with the latest results of the neck-to-neck race in New York City that will decide the next mayor of New York. This is Rohit Sharma for India Today Global, and do not forget to hit the like and subscribe button before you leave. Stay tuned, stay informed, and as always, stay curious.